You won't believe what just happened. Shaunie O'Neal and Pastor Keion Henderson's so-called perfect love story came crashing down, and trust me, the truth behind their breakup was way more shocking than anyone expected. At first, people thought it was just another Hollywood split, maybe a few differences, maybe they grew apart. But here's the shocking part. There was something much bigger hiding beneath the surface. Something that made Shaunie pack her bags and walk away from what once seemed like a fairy tale. When Shaunie and Keion got together, everyone thought they were the ultimate power couple. She was strong, independent, and had already built an empire with basketball wives. She didn't need a man to define her, and that's exactly what made her such an inspiration. Then came Keion, a rising star in the world of ministry, a man with charisma, a powerful voice, and a growing influence. He wasn't just a preacher, he was a brand, and he knew how to carry himself like one. Together, they seemed unstoppable. People admired their relationship, calling it goals. They looked picture perfect on Instagram, smiling in family photos, traveling together, showing the world that love after divorce was possible. But this is where it gets interesting. Behind those glamorous pictures, whispers had already started spreading. Some people close to them noticed that everything wasn't as perfect as it seemed. It started with small things. Shaunie looked less excited in public. There were moments where she seemed distant. But the real trouble started when financial concerns around Keion's ministry began to surface. And here's the craziest part. While people thought Shaunie and Keion were simply having marital issues, in reality, Shaunie might have been witnessing something much worse, something that made her realize she could no longer be a part of it. Keion had been making bold financial moves in his church, and not everyone was happy about it. In August 2024, he made headlines when he asked his congregation to donate $2,100 each to help raise a $4 million goal for his ministry. This was not just a small offering, this was a massive demand, especially considering that many of his church members weren't rich. People who had been devoted to his church for years suddenly found themselves questioning, where was all this money really going? Some believed in him, trusting that he had a bigger plan, but others, they weren't so sure. And then there was that sermon, the one that made people question everything. Keion stood in front of his church and said something that immediately sparked outrage. Blessings don't come from giving to the poor, they come from giving to the church. Let me tell you, that one line changed everything. Now, people were shocked. While tithing had always been a part of faith, the way he said it made it seem like giving to him was more important than helping those in need. That's when people really started asking, was this still about faith? Or was Keion turning his ministry into a business? Shaunie, a smart and business-savvy woman, couldn't ignore the red flags. She had been in the public eye for years, and she knew what it meant to be associated with controversy. If Keion was doing something shady with money, people would start looking at her too. And trust me, she wasn't about to let her name get dragged into a scandal. But this was only the beginning. The more she started looking into his financial dealings, the more uneasy she became. And then something happened that completely changed the game. But wait, this is where things took an even darker turn. Shaunie wasn't just dealing with financial red flags. She was starting to realize that Keion's entire public image might not have been what it seemed. While the world saw a confident, successful pastor leading a thriving church, behind the scenes, there were whispers of mismanagement, hidden dealings, and even betrayal. And let me tell you, the deeper she looked, the more disturbing things became. As more church members started speaking out, stories about financial mismanagement began to swirl. Some longtime followers claimed that money meant for community projects and charitable outreach never actually reached those in need. Instead, people started noticing luxury purchases, extravagant trips, and an overall lavish lifestyle that didn't quite match the humble image Keion had always preached. And here's the craziest part. Some members of his own church started to question if they had been misled this whole time. One anonymous member reportedly said, "I've been giving to this church for years, believing in its mission, but now I'm being asked to donate more than what some people make in a month. It just doesn't feel right. And just when people thought this scandal couldn't get any messier, something even more shocking surfaced. Insiders started whispering about an alleged double life. You won't believe this, but there were rumors that Keion had been involved in inappropriate relationships within his own congregation. Now, this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about trust, about faith, about whether the man people looked up to as a spiritual guide had been living a completely different life behind closed doors. Shaunie was no fool. She had spent years in the spotlight navigating drama, scandals, and betrayal before. But this was different. This was about her marriage, her reputation, and her future. And here's where it gets interesting. She wasn't just reacting to the situation emotionally, she was preparing. While people assumed that her decision to file for divorce was sudden, those close to her revealed that she had actually been planning this for months. She had started consulting with legal teams, securing her assets, and making sure that when she walked away, she wouldn't be leaving empty-handed. And then, as if things weren't already spiraling, a bombshell dropped, an audio leak. This was the moment when the world truly realized that something serious had gone down between Shaunie and Keion. In the leaked recording, Shaunie's voice could be heard, raw, emotional, and hurt. I trusted him, but he turned our marriage into a lie. Just that one sentence was enough to send social media into a frenzy. Fans and critics alike dissected every word, trying to piece together the puzzle. What was the lie? Was it the financial scandal, the rumored affairs, or was there something even deeper that Shaunie hadn't revealed yet? And let's talk about the timing of this leak, because trust me, it wasn't accidental. It came right after the financial scandal surrounding Keion's church started making headlines. It was almost as if someone wanted the world to see the full picture. And Shaunie, she wasn't backing down. She wasn't just going to let herself be painted as the heartbroken wife. She was taking control of the narrative, making sure the world knew exactly why she had chosen to walk away. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a truly unexpected turn. Up until now, people thought Shaunie was just reacting to the financial controversy, but the truth was even messier than anyone could have imagined. While Keion's church drama was enough to raise eyebrows, it was the personal betrayals that really shattered everything. You won't believe what insiders started whispering next. There were claims that Shaunie had found evidence of Keion's double life. And not just from random sources, this was coming from people inside their inner circle. At first, it was just vague suspicions. Shaunie had noticed late night messages, unexplained absences, and a sudden change in Keion's behavior. But when she started putting the pieces together, the full picture was worse than she ever expected. According to rumors, multiple women within Keion's congregation had allegedly come forward with shocking claims. They said Keion had been too close to certain female church members, offering private mentorship, late-night counseling sessions, and even expensive gifts. And here's the part that made everyone's jaws drop. Some of these alleged relationships may have overlapped with his marriage to Shaunie. This was the breaking point. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about trust, about faith, about whether the man who had built a brand on preaching love and loyalty had actually been playing a completely different game behind the scenes. And let me tell you, Shaunie, she wasn't about to sit quietly and let it slide. Behind the scenes, she had already started preparing her exit. She was consulting with top legal experts, ensuring that when she left, she wouldn't be financially tied to Keion's mess. She had spent years building her empire, and she wasn't going to let one man's actions bring her down. And then she made her move. Shaunie didn't just quietly file for divorce. She did it strategically. She waited until the financial scandal was at its peak. She waited until the whispers about Keion's personal life started gaining traction. And when the time was right, she walked away on her terms. No dramatic social media posts, no messy public statements, just a clear, calculated decision to end the marriage before things got even worse. But here's where things took an even crazier turn. After the leaked audio, people assumed that Shaunie was the only one who had been blindsided in this relationship. But what if I told you that Keion himself might not have seen this coming? What if I told you that he was the one scrambling to figure out what went wrong? Some sources claim that Keion was completely caught off guard by how quickly Shaunie distanced herself. While he may have seen some tension in their marriage, he reportedly didn't expect her to pull the plug this fast. And then, just when people thought the dust was starting to settle, another bombshell dropped. And a former church member came forward with allegations that could change everything. They claimed that Keion had been using donated church funds for personal expenses, lavish vacations, designer suits, even luxury cars. And the worst part, they alleged that some of these purchases were made while he was married to Shaunie. If this was true, then Shaunie had every reason to leave, not just to protect herself emotionally, but to make sure her reputation and finances weren't dragged down with his. And trust me, at this point, Keion wasn't just fighting to save his marriage. He was now fighting to save his entire career. The trust that his congregation once had in him, it was crumbling fast. People wanted answers, they wanted receipts, and most importantly, they wanted to know if their money had been misused all along. But just when you thought things couldn't get any wilder, the real chaos began. Keion wasn't just dealing with backlash from his congregation anymore. The scandal had gone viral, and now the media was all over it. News outlets started digging deeper, and what they uncovered made things so much worse. Financial records were being questioned. Former church staff were anonymously leaking information, and suddenly, it wasn't just about rumors anymore, it was about evidence. And here's where it gets interesting, because while Keion was trying to do damage control, Shaunie was already 10 steps ahead. She wasn't just protecting her own reputation, she was making it crystal clear that she had nothing to do with his financial dealings. Sources close to her claimed that she had quietly separated her finances from Keion's long before the scandal broke. She wasn't about to let his alleged shady dealings drag her down. And honestly, that kind of business savvy is why she's built such a powerful empire in the first place. But here's the shocking part. Just as Keion was trying to defend himself, another woman came forward with new allegations. And this wasn't just any woman, this was someone from inside the church. She claimed that Keion had not only been emotionally involved with her, but that he had also promised her things that now made a lot of the people question his character even more. At first, Keion denied everything. He called the allegations baseless, said that people were just trying to tear him down, and insisted that his fundraising efforts were completely legitimate. But the damage had already been done. The trust was broken. More and more people started speaking out, and suddenly, the once admired pastor was looking more like someone who had been playing two very different roles, one in public and one behind closed doors. And let's talk about Shaunie's silence during all of this, because that was the biggest power move of them all. While the internet was in flames, while Keion was trying to put out fires left and right, Shaunie didn't say a word. No interviews, no social media, rants, nothing. And that silence, it spoke louder than anything else. Because in the past, when people are innocent, they rush to clear their name. But when someone knows the truth and doesn't even need to defend themselves, that's when you know they've already won. But wait, this is where destiny took an unexpected turn. Just when it seemed like Keion's career might completely fall apart, he made a desperate move. Reports surfaced that he was planning to step away from his leadership role at the church, at least temporarily. Was this a move to protect his reputation, a legal strategy, or was he truly trying to reflect on his actions? No one knew for sure. But what was clear was that the man who had built his brand on faith and leadership was now on the verge of losing everything. And let's not forget the leaked messages, because this part had everyone talking. Screenshots started circulating, allegedly showing Keion having private conversations with multiple women, some of which might have overlapped with his relationship with Shaunie. Some people said the messages were fake, others insisted they were real. But at this point, the damage was done. The public had already made up its mind, and Shaunie, she wasn't just walking away, she was making sure she never had to look back. And just when you thought this story couldn't take another turn, it did. Keion was now in full-blown crisis mode. His once loyal followers were demanding real answers. His financial dealings were being questioned more than ever, and his personal life completely in shambles. But the craziest part, this was just the beginning of the fallout. See, people weren't just talking anymore. They were investigating. Independent reporters started digging deeper into his church's finances, and what they found had people shocked. Allegations of misused church funds, unaccounted for donations, and lavish personal spending were suddenly making their way into news reports. And here's where it got even worse. Former church staff started coming forward, claiming that Keion had been warned about mixing personal luxury with church money way before the scandal blew up. If these allegations were true, it meant that not only was he aware of what was happening, he kept doing it anyway. But here's what makes this story different, because while Keion's world was falling apart, Shaunie's was only getting stronger. While Keion was scrambling to put out the fire, Shaunie was leveling up. She officially distanced herself from him in every possible way, legally, financially, and even publicly. Insiders claimed she had already lined up major business deals, proving that this drama wasn't going to stop her. And if there was one thing everyone could agree on, she wasn't looking back. Then came the final blow, the one that made it impossible for Keion to escape the consequences of his actions. A former church accountant spoke to the media and made an explosive claim that Keion had allegedly moved large sums of money into private accounts, ones that had nothing to do with church operations. If this was true, it could mean serious legal trouble for him. And just when Keion thought things couldn't get any worse, news broke that some church members were considering legal action. They wanted answers, and if they didn't get them, they were prepared to take him to court. At this point, Keion wasn't just losing trust, he was losing everything. And Shaunie, she continued to stay silent. No interviews, no public feuds, no messy back and forth, just pure, calculated power moves. And let's be real, that silence, it was the loudest statement of all. So now the big question remains, was Keion really guilty of everything he was accused of? Were the financial scandals and personal betrayals just misunderstandings? Or was this a carefully constructed image finally falling apart? One thing's for sure, Shaunie O'Neal walked away from this with her empire intact, her reputation stronger than ever, and her future brighter than before. But Keion? He now had a long road ahead, one filled with damage control, legal battles, and an uncertain future. In the world, it was watching every move,